Well, Venom: The Last Dance is still pretty hot in theaters and did fairly well over this past weekend. With Tom Hardy leaving the franchise, many people have been wondering about the future of the character, where he could show up next, and what Sony might have in mind. And, well, Sony's gonna Sony. Now we have a new report about the potential future of Venom, and it looks like another iteration of the character could be coming our way, and it's not the Eddie Brock version. Let's take a couple minutes to talk about Agent Venom and what Sony might have planned for this symbiote variant. Now, from very early on, Sony Pictures and quite honestly, Tom Hardy made it super clear that Venom: The Last Dance would wrap up a trilogy of films and could very well be the last time we see Eddie Brock and the symbiote together. Now, if you've seen the movie, you know they kinda left the door open to future possibilities, but in interviews, Tom Hardy seems pretty reassured he's not coming back, and that leads you to wondering what Sony is going to try to do with the Venom character, and it looks like they're pulling right from the comics. Now, this report comes via Daniel Rickman, so it's not from Sony or Tom Rothman or anybody within the studio, so we're taking it with a grain of salt, but Rickman's had quite the terror lately getting things right. He doesn't hide behind anonymity, so he is a source we like to turn to. Now, according to Rickman, right now, Agent Venom is in development over at Sony Studios, which was not the news I was expecting. Now, if you're not familiar with Agent Venom, that's perfectly okay. In the comics, Agent Venom was Peter Parker's bully-turned-friend, Eugene Flash Thompson. Now, the comic story for this version of Venom takes quite the different path. As we were saying, this is the Flash Thompson from the classic Spider-Man comics, but during his military service, he actually loses both of his legs. Now, shortly after the siege of Asgard, he takes part in Project Rebirth 2.0. And the US government actually acquires the symbiote via Mac Gargan in that storyline, and Flash is able to bond with the symbiote, reconstitute his legs, and give us a completely different take on the character. This version of Venom in the comics is quite different than the classic Venom. He still has the symbiote as part of his costume and a lot of very similar abilities to Spider-Man, but this version of the character is heavily armored, uses guns, and is basically a hybrid between Venom and almost a very Frank Castle-like character. So his interpretation on the big screen could be something that really does work, if, and it's a big if, Sony is able to capitalize. Now, beyond this, we don't have a lot of other details. It does appear Venom sacrifices himself to prevent Null from invading our world at the end of the last film, but this is a comic book story, and we do know he had a tendency to leave some bits of himself behind, and if you haven't seen the movie yet, well, there's a huge clue at the end that indicates the Venom symbiote could be living on. Now, this begs the question of who takes up the role of the character. I do not think Tony Revolori, who currently plays Flash in the MCU Spider-Man movies, will take up that particular costume and become this version of Venom. I fully think it's going to be part of Sony's Spider-Verse, and as we keep seeing over and over again, despite lots of rumors otherwise, it seems like Sony is still making efforts to self-contain the character. Honestly, if they wanted to bring back a version of Flash Thompson, Joe Manganiello would be pretty perfect for this role and could totally bring him to life, even setting it in the Tobey Maguire universe, which would get fans pretty excited and build some steam behind this film. Now, like I said, not a lot else is known. There is another rumor that this will somehow be tied to the Silver Sable movie, and so it's distinctly possible that Sony is trying to weave kind of an interconnected group of superhero secret agent types as part of their new SSU, but from day one it seems like Sony hasn't had a plan, and if they do go with Agent Venom, for me it does feel like just another attempt to throw something against the wall and see what sticks. Obviously, we'll follow Venom pretty closely. I know a lot of you guys enjoyed the most recent movie, but I have to know, is there any interest at all for an Agent Venom film? And what kind of casting would you like to see him do? Do they keep Revolori as Flash Thompson and put it in the MCU? Or would you like Joe Manganiello to come back and play the character set in the Tobeyverse? Tell me what you think in the comments below. Now, before you take off, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button, ring that bell for all the updates, and make sure you get every notification because we do daily Marvel and DC content and we don't want you to miss any news.